Were you guys a podcast like before Barstool, and then like came aboard?
Correct.
Yeah.
So we started in like late May, early June of 2019, and then we had gotten DM'd. Our Bussin account got DM'd by Gaz, old Gaz, man.
Yeah.
So he's out there lurking.
He's in the shadows.
He DM'd probably in July.
Okay, so were you
after the?
Were you planning on going somewhere? Like, was there chances
no,
you were going to go
the
anywhere
first
else?
thought when you're starting a pod is you're just thinking like, no, we're gonna fucking do this all on our own. Dude. Like fuck everybody else.
I'm gonna be Joe Rogan, man. And then it's
Yeah,
like, well,
yeah.
wait a minute.
See, that's that fucking athlete confidence though, because my first thought when starting a pod is like, no one's ever gonna listen to this.
Well, it's got to be nice. Like there is definitely like a pro athlete bump for sure, where you just you get like. You just have a little extra credibility.
No doubt. Like we knew that, okay, we're one of the first in this space, like active NFL players having a podcast together.
Huge.
And just letting it fly. Like we're kind of saying whatever. We're FaceTiming every night because we backlogged probably 5 before we released one. We were just thinking, man, is this going to be dope? Like, is this going to be cool? Like, we were kind of thinking the same thing. Like, if we got big, like, oh, we'll do this on our own. But we were also very, like, insecure and, like, are we going to sound okay? Like, I wonder how people are going to like it. You knew you would get the initial bump of people listening. Like, I wonder what is going to come out of this.
Yeah, and then it's probably have every reporter probably like first thing they do is listen to it.
For our first pod, we had Delaney Walker on. He's talking about, the organization talking about draft a tight end. And I'm like, fucking draft a tight end. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and they grabbed that as a headline. And he talked about getting an IV bag, and he felt like he was almost dying. So, of course, the headline is like, NFL player talks about near-death experience. And that's on,
that's
Pro
the
Football
best
Talk,
part,
like
though.
all that stuff.
Yeah,
the next week, Vrabel has a big team meeting. I wasn't on the team at this point, but obviously Taylor's briefing me on all of it. And, I'm like talking with Vrabel in the interim about it all. And it's like, guys, look, I want you all to go on this podcast. I think it's awesome that they're doing, what they're doing. You just got to be careful because you're going to have a microscope in the media outlets. Like, how it works. Like, they're going to take any bit you say and try to, contort it around into whatever headline they want, and it can make us look bad. So just be cautious. So I'm sure they're on the other side.
And that's what they, like, I'll be honest, if I was a GM or an owner, I'd be like, no, you're not doing a fucking podcast. Are you kidding me? Like, somehow, some way, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to say something. They were just like, you can do it, but just be careful. That was
not necessarily. Like, I just want to do a podcast. I was a free agent at this time.
Right.
Taylor had just signed the biggest O-line contract in NFL history.
Right.
So the dotted line's already signed.
He's
so
like,
there's
gotcha, bitch. Now I'm going to talk into a microphone every week.
So it's kind of like, it's not necessarily a guy you can just cut.
Right.
Because he's like a lead on your team.
Yeah, he's got the leverage.
You're kind of just sitting in there, tight asshole, like, man, I hope.
Please don't.
Yeah, I hope this doesn't go bad.
But I also think that, like, you guys seem like trustworthy in a sense.
Right.
Like,
it's
not
definitely
trying to
risky.
torpedo anything. You're not.
Right.
But
you also don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? Like, the Titans, the first year we went, like, I'm a free agent on the couch, as they say. Taylor had just got popped for his suspension, for the PD suspension. So he's out the first 4 weeks. So we're steady doing podcasts. The Titans start off 2-4. So when they're losing, I'm kind of, I'm at home. Like, fuck, man, I don't even want to tweet about Bussin' With The Boys because people are just going to, the whole shut up and dribble.
Absolutely.
Shut up and play football.
Yeah.
Like, you're losing focus. Like, you're not this.
You're not
and what's
trying
going
hard.
on? Yeah, you're not trying to help the team. So there's definitely some, like...
Which is such a weird thing because, like, how much, like
Totally.
people think that, like, I don't know. I guess people just think that athletes are doing something at all times. Like, they're not human. People don't look at you guys like human beings.
At the sport.
Yeah, they're 24 hours in a day.
Right.
Most of them I'm sleeping. A couple of them I'm playing football. A lot of them I'm eating.
Also,
like,
a lot of them I'm talking.
Right.
And this time I'm just talking.
Yeah, dude,
I used to get mad, though. So, like
people get mad about people tweeting. Like, that's, what are you
what's
doing
crazy.
on Twitter right now? Like, I don't know, being a fucking human being in 2021.
Right, and somebody pops off to you like, oh, what are you doing on Twitter? Oh, what is this, your platform? What is this? Are you a professional tweeter? Is there only a certain type of people that can be on here?
Right. I used to get mad as a Mets fan when things were going bad and Cespedes would just golf every day. And I was like, I get that you have all this free time in the world, but just know that there's going to be a huge swath of fans who are pissed off that you're basically doing another sport instead of the one over here. So, like, you can do it, but just know that there's going to be the consequences, which I think is probably a similar situation here, too, where it's like you're going to be
golf
on
is
a
much
microscope.
longer when to do it.
Yeah. It's all. I mean,
you're out in the sun, you're working a little harder.
Yeah, I mean, for a guy who, like, was having problems, like, torque. And, you know, I'm like, this is like the last thing you should be doing. But yeah, I mean, it's
video
like,
games. I mean, guys play video games
busted up their
all the
thumbs,
time,
dude.
bro. Like all day long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was more like, let's get some of these conversations we're having in the locker room, in the hot tub, in the sauna, all that stuff. Like, let's get them behind a microphone because we all talk about all these things, like aspiring, like to do business deals or listening to certain people talk, laughing at certain jokes, bantering back and forth. So that was like the motivation behind it. And it's like, you know, for Taylor, you show up and do it for like, you know, an hour. I was the free agent. I was the person that's like, hey, I'll handle all the other shit, bro.
Yeah.
Like, just show up, do your thing, be entertaining. You know,
Yeah.
we have our friendship, and you know what else is he gonna do for that hour or 2 hours in a day? You can only work out so damn much.
right.
You can
There's
only
so
put your
much
life
film
to
you
it
can
so
watch.
much.
Yeah.
How
And it's just
many,
like, not to cut you off,
no,
but on
okay.
another note too, like you go through college, right? And you're taught as a student to build your resume as good as you can. And when you're in one job, especially in the business world, you're looking for the next job. Like always start
Always be
setting
building,
yourself up
growing,
for plan B. Thank you very
diversifying,
much.
all that shit. Yeah.
Yeah, always plan for the next step, the next stage. Have a toolbox of a lot of things you can do. Be well versed in a lot of different areas so you're not pigeonholed in one area. That's what you're taught as a student going through college, in the business world.
Yep.
Adapting to all those things. And
then
all of a
sports.
sudden, when it's a sport, you don't want them doing anything else other than their sport. Like,
Right.
what if they have interest in other things? Why can't they sharpen their tools there? Because the minute the game's over, that same logo that wants you to sacrifice everything for the team, for the organization, for that logo, the minute it's over with, that logo's not making sure you're laying your head stress-free at night, setting you up
way.
with another job.
No shot.
They're not doing that. So you got to think, like, as an athlete, about life after the game, what you're interested in, because once the rug gets pulled out from underneath you, it is stressful. Like, I haven't tasted the other side of it yet. I'm fortunate to have started building Bussin' With The Boys. But that year that I was thinking about building Bussin' With The Boys, I'm thinking, like, what do I want to do after football? Because I don't necessarily know, and life is going to hit me pretty quickly. And the minute you get on the other side of it, your jokes aren't as funny. You're not as good looking. You don't get to shake
You
as
don't
many
get that
hands
bump anymore. Yeah.
You don't get to get in all these meeting
You're an
rooms.
ex-player.
Yeah,
You're
you're
a
an ex-player.
former this.
You're a former player
yeah.
trying to get in the
Right.
podcast. You see it everywhere.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's why I said earlier the active thing is so huge, because there's plenty of people who retire or wash out or whatever, and then they try to recapture it. Capture it now while you've got it and kind of have them overlap a little, and it's a totally different game.
Absolutely. And I'm not like diminishing like me being talented and like podcasting and doing entertaining and being a personality and stuff like. I'm not like belittling that, but it's like at the same time, it's not like I'm some superstar player that is doing this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that goes out and is on social media and doing these things. Like at the same time, you're trying to be like an example for those guys who are, you know, not necessarily starters year in and year out, that can show that you can juggle a couple things and also be curious and be interested in something else.
And especially a sport that can, like, bam, could be gone. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's a violent sport, injuries, whatever, where all of a sudden it could be gone, and you're like, well.
And you're
now
cut, you
what?
never
'Cause I
get called
haven't
again.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed. That same logo will toss you to the fucking curb as soon as, you know, you're not useful to them. And now you haven't been doing anything but that for 5, 6, 10 years, whatever. It's crazy. It's crazy to expect people to just not be a well-rounded person.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. I was on Token, and I was telling Erica, it's like you go 23 years of your life. Now, obviously, I didn't play football from like 0 to 8, but you go 23 years of your life to try and get drafted in a sport that lasts 2.8 years on an average
Jesus
career.
Christ, that's crazy.
And the minute you're done, yes, I've lived the dream. Like, I've done what my young self wanted me to do my entire life, and that's play professional football. I wasn't I wasn't the next Walter Payton, but I
Right.
got to play in the NFL. Like, I did it, right? And the minute it's over with, like, it's all I've identified with. It's all these
And
players.
you're still
identify
your young
with.
self, by the way.
Yeah.
You're not an old man.
Right. When someone says, "How
You're
old
just
are
a
you?" I'm
little
like,
bit older of
"Oh, yeah,
yourself. That's really good.
exactly." And like, you know, you identify with being an athlete your entire life, and then when it's pulled out, like, it's just everyone retires, right? Like in high school, you might retire after playing high school, and so you start figuring out sooner than everybody else, like what the real world's going to be. In college, you might be done after college. You start figuring out what it's going to be like, the real world. But if you're fortunate enough to play for a while, like you don't really know what the real world is like until it just hits you in the mouth, and then everyone's like, I mean, dude, you were a player, like you'll figure it out. I'm sure you're doing well, and you kind of like a lot of the guys, they kind of just hide behind whatever they're saying. Yeah, I'm gonna figure this out, that out. Then go lay their head on the pillow at night, and then it's like, what the fuck?
You're selling cars back in your old town.
Exactly.
I like the spin zone. That's why I retired out of high school. I want to get a head start.
I retired. Yeah, that idea. Everyone retires.
Just wanted to get a head start with my real life.
I figured it out.
96% of you motherfuckers watch these videos and aren't subscribed. Shout out to the 4%. You are good people. 4% of people are watching our clips.
That's about what I would guess the breakdown of
good people versus bad people
in the world. Yeah. Good people versus bad people. Probably about 96% to 4.
That's
but
fair.
Be a good person.
But it's not even. I'm not even asking you to be a good person. I'm asking you to push a button.
Yeah,
I'm asking you to click a button.
Yeah, you can be a bad person still, but just click the button.
You can be a piece of shit. Just click subscribe. 96% of you watch these clips and they're like, oh my God, that was a funny clip from this podcast. I liked it. And I'm just not going to help them out. The people who work to make it, the people who work to produce it, to post it, to upload it, and there's nothing from you. You're a bad person if you don't subscribe.
Be a good one.